So, LaRae, have you ever opened an insurance aging report and saw five figures in the 90 plus days column and just thought, yeah, that's a future me problem?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, you're not alone. And if that resonates with you, this episode's for you.
Welcome to the Truth Decay Podcast, talking dollars and cents with Sara Baker and LaRae McMullen. So when we bring on a new client, the first thing that we look at always is the insurance aging report. If a practice is having cash flow issues, that report usually tells the story. A lot of the time, it's just a matter of a big backlog of claims that haven't been followed up on. It's not rocket science, but it does take time and consistency. And that's exactly what we bring to the table. So yeah, we go straight to the aging every time. Hopefully today we'll discuss your insurance aging report and some fresh perspectives, and our listeners will walk away with some practical tools and simple solutions to help regain some control. So let's talk about some obvious and some not so obvious truths about inflated, bloated insurance aging reports.
So I would say, and LaRae, correct me if I'm wrong, here's a pretty common example. So what we see a lot of times is a mid-sized practice. When I say mid-sized, I'd say they're probably doing about anywhere up to like $100K a month in production. And pretty consistently, right? A lot of times that could be a single doctor practice with, multiple hygienists, or maybe even two doctors with kind of minimal hygiene. And the production is pretty steady. So you're seeing pretty, robust production every single month. But when we go, just like you say, straight to those insurance aging reports, commonly in situations like this, we will see 200K in outstanding insurance claims, like double almost what the usual production is per month.
Well, what does the office look like at this example of yours? What does the front desk look like?
So it's funny because those who work at the front are probably not going to be surprised by this at all, by what I just described. Typically, you're going to see one or more frustrated, super busy front desk staff. There's probably maybe an overworked office manager who would absolutely love to get to that report, but simply can't do it because they're doing in-office stuff all the time. So they're really, honestly, just like kind of trying to stay afloat. That's what we see.
Totally. It's typically not a negligent front desk that creates a huge insurance aging. We find that it's actually usually a super busy front desk who are skilled and engaged with patient experience literally all the time. Phone calls, patients needing to be checked in, waiting to talk about proposed treatment plans, sign financial documents, all the things that take up time but are absolutely necessary. That in-office environment creates a situation where it's nearly impossible to find the time to work on an insurance aging report from top to bottom.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get us wrong. Honestly, sometimes it is a mismanagement of time, right? Like sometimes, they're maybe not using their time as effectively as they could. But honestly, it's more a matter of an inability to prioritize. Because so many things are priorities when you're working in an office environment where you've got a phone ringing and patients coming in. They're all priorities.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to keep a report in your head as a priority, even though it is, right? And if we all had all the time in the world, then those reports would be taken care of. But more often than not, it's a lack of resources to simply work the report. And it's time and know-how to do that and how to carve that space out.
Right. So ultimately, whatever the reason, and this is a very common issue that an office might find themselves in. So what are some of the hallmarks that we could probably tell our listeners about insurance aging, what to do when their insurance aging gets, pretty crazy?
I would say some of the things that we see that jump out at me are huge 60 to 90 day claims columns. Really, honestly, of course, you want to see the vast majority of your claims in the 0 to 30. You want to see some, in the 30 to 60 day column. And then you want to see that go down, right, as time goes on. But in an office like I described, where you've got pretty consistent, robust production, but a huge insurance aging, you're gonna see those columns quite large because those claims just keep getting stacked over there and they're not able to be worked. Old unresolved claims. And honestly, like one thing that you would see too are poor notes about those claims.
Yep, that's a good one.
And it kind of results in, when you are able to work the report, you're not able to work it as effectively as possible because you have people taking precious time and redoing work, checking on something,
what might have already happened. Yeah,
that's right. And if you're not making, notes about who you spoke to, what they said, and then what the next step is going to be, you might have somebody starting in those A's and then reworking claims when, man, that time could be so much better spent going down the list a bit.
Totally.
And so there are many, many consequences when we see this. I mean, I think there's a bit of a culture of avoidance. We say that a lot when it comes to this. And there's a lot of consequences when insurance aging reports get to this stage.
Yeah, well, the obvious one would be, a ton of money that's outstanding. So unresolved claims equals a ton of like easy money. We call that low hanging fruit sometimes. That you're absolutely owed. So it just needs a little bit of attention.
Yeah. And this actually goes back to our topic last week, right? Where we were talking about how the average dental office statistically only collects about 91% of what is owed to them. If we go back and we think about the, take your adjusted production, a lot of offices are only collecting 91%, and that remaining 9% just goes missing, right? This is partly where it goes. Mm-hmm. So right here in the insurance aging, unless somebody's working it, it's just going to stay. It just stays on here and it dies, because it's going to timely file out. As you get further and further away from the date of service, the patient kind of starts to forget what they had done, why it's important for them to pay. When you are avoiding this topic, if you don't, and it timely files out, you're going to have to either write it off because it timely filed out, or you're going to have to try to go to a patient and explain to them why we got no payment from your insurance carrier, even though we kind of promised that
months ago.
Yeah. And by the way, this balance is due from you. That's a really high hill to climb. It's very hard.
Yeah.
A really common occurrence is when we go into an office and we review reports, we always check patient collections and insurance collections. And when we see the insurance collections, it's a very, very common trend. So we'll run the reports back about 12 months and we'll see the insurance collections, and it'll go down, 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 down. And then all of a sudden 1 month it spikes and it goes way up. And you can tell it's probably because somebody just couldn't take it anymore. And they were like, oh my God, we're not getting any insurance payments really. And they just mass resubmitted a ton of insurance claims. And that's that low hanging fruit that you're talking about, that quote unquote easy money, right? Because then it resulted in a ton of money payments coming in, which is great to it. Of course, money's great, but there's probably things that need to be done in that as well, right? You got a whole bunch of payments come in, but then you also have denials and inquiries. You have things that the insurance company is asking for. Those potentially are just going to get shelved as well if you don't have a system to address them, right? So it's just so much better to have a system where you are working your insurance aging report on a regular basis, and these payments are smooth and consistent, as opposed to this kind of up and down situation that we see a lot of offices get into out of necessity.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of that, like if you're inconsistent, if you only have time to go mass, resubmit those claims, the ones that actually need some additional like looking into and maybe some more information, those are not, you have time to work those because those ones do take some time. But if you're not consistently working that and just seeing something that might have been, a wrong subscriber ID or a wrong date of birth or something, you're setting yourself up for failure basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So your insurance aging is a mess. What do you do?
Well, we actually have a 5-step aging cleanup blueprint. So it kind of goes over like what actually works and what should practices do instead. And number one on that is to segment it, break the report into actionable chunks. So, a lot of reports print out in 30, 60, 90 plus. So you could break them out that way. You could break them out by insurances that you can utilize the website really easily on. But we suggest breaking it down by 30, 60, 90. And a lot of time we'll start with those 90-day plus ones.
Yeah. And to continue that, number 2 is going to be dedicate time. So we just talked about it a second ago, but now that you are dedicated to cleaning this up, right? You have to get to it. You got to start it. You've got to start with that 90 days, catch anything that's close to timely filing. And this isn't something that you're hopefully going to need to do all the time, but in the beginning, you are going to have to carve the time out.
Yeah.
Like, period, end of story. It is what it is.
Yeah. Here we like to set specific schedules of when we work on things. So it just kind of helps to have that time carved out. And like we said earlier, we know that that's not always possible in the office, but that is what it kind of takes. So number 3 would be to track communication. I know Sara talked about this a little bit earlier, but use standardized notes in the system. Note every single claim. So you have shorthand, acronyms, colors that we all use internally. You can change colors on the notes in certain softwares like EagleSoft and things. So we will do those types of things. But whatever works for you. So you also want to keep a copy of the physical report. It's just a little bit of a cover your ass tool.
Yeah.
So, but you should absolutely be noting reference numbers, claim numbers, who you spoke to, what the next step is if that you're going to be taking right now. Nothing vague. You don't want it to be like, looked into this and it's still in processing. Try to get a little bit more of a note. So the future you who goes and works it knows where to start, right? And this will only help you. If the claim's on the reports ever again, like we just said, then you know where to start. So
yeah. Yep. We would also say, number 4, prioritize those high value claims. So when you are working your insurance aging report, and again, you're trying to get it on track and you're trying to wrap your hands around it, while you're working, and prioritizing and breaking it up into segments, make sure that you're hitting all of those really high value claims.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that, for instance, if there are any ortho claims that are on there, give those ortho claims a call. Make sure that the coverage is still active, that you understand when the payments are going to be expected, that you weren't supposed to be sending in any vouchers, right? And you haven't missed that. So those are really big numbers that, you submit the claim and then you kind of forget about it. And man, future you going in there and facing the possibility of having to write off a claim that is $3,600 or more, you don't want that.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're looking at your aging report. And if there's any high value ones, put some extra attention in that. Just make sure to check on those kind of at the top of your list and make good notes about it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I would say create a system for going forward. So you need to get to a point where you can work your insurance aging report from top to bottom every week, period.
If you work it in its entirety from top to bottom every single time, you are actually going to need to work it less. The longer it gets, this report, the more overwhelming it is. And the harder it is to get through the entire thing. And a lot of times they, they print in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
So we find that people are really good at working the Aetnas and the Emeritus and, all those, but the United Healthcares, the United Concordias, they don't necessarily get as much love.
Yeah.
So you want to work it all the way through. And that report is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter until you can literally work the entire report in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And you should be doing that once a week.
So Sara, you and we have some of the most skilled, most experienced, and most awesome insurance aging specialists working with us. And we did ask them for some tips, tricks, and anything that they would be good passing along to all of you. So lucky for you all that they actually did. So Sara, why don't you share some of the tips that our billers gave?
Yeah. So number 1, the first thing they said was before you even touch the claim, know the network status of the office that you're working with. So if you work in an office, you need to understand what carriers your office is in and out of network with all of the providers in the office. If you do what we do and provide this service out of the office, whatever client you're working with, you need to understand if they're in or out of network. Honestly, it can change your whole aging strategy. Many offices get tripped up by write-offs. Mm-hmm. They get tripped up by misunderstanding contractual obligations of when, something is appealable and not appealable, things that insurance won't cover. So understand what you're working with before you start working those claims.
Yeah.
And also, don't skip the paperwork, speaking of the insurance. So if you're adding a new doctor to your practice, we see this all the time. Make sure that you're submitting all of the necessary credentialing forms to your insurers.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of times that offices will all of a sudden just like have a new associate.
Yep.
And they haven't told the insurance carriers that they have this new associate. So even if you're not trying to get in network, you're not trying to get contracted, you still need to make sure that the insurance company understands that this is a real provider with a valid license who is going to be doing treatment in your office, or else that insurance aging report is going to reflect a bunch of claims that simply were not processed because they're like, we don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
So do yourself a favor and make sure that any new provider that's going to be on your claims as a rendering provider, that the insurance companies that you're submitting to know that they're real, and also that your practice management software is equipped to be able to transmit this new license. Because sometimes there's some extra steps that you need to take in order to be able to electronically transmit claims.
Yeah, that's definitely one that we've seen before. And another note on that, and surprisingly, people don't realize this, but there is a difference between contracting and credentialing. So
yes,
we're not saying you have to go get contracted with whatever provider is, the owner of your office or whatever. But if you're a new associate, you still have to be credentialed with whatever insurances they take. So yeah,
that's right. There. Yep. We're gonna do a future episode on the difference between contracted.
I think that's a good one.
Credentialed. Yeah.
All right. So kind of following those lines, less about the paperwork, but clean up your data game. Number 2 is clean up your data game. Cross-reference like a boss before submitting a claim. Always you want to verify subscriber ID, subscriber date of birth, patient date of birth. The group number sometimes really comes into play there. The claims address, the payer ID, and bonus. If you can get a fax number, definitely snag it, because I know fax seems like so dinosaur, ancient, old, but it really helps out with dental claims. So it's going to come in handy if all the other things fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, when there was that huge breach, was it just last year?
Yeah, it
was
a
flat circle, so nothing makes sense anymore. But when there was that huge breach, we faxed a ton of claims, like a lot of claims, to make sure that they would get in when electronic capabilities were down.
Because everybody's was down and they had to switch to like Vine just to get claims to go, but we were able to fax a lot of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So number 3, leverage tech to save your sanity. So honestly, the more logins, the merrier. I also am a bit of a dinosaur, and my inclination is to pick up the phone and call if I have a question about a claim. But we would highly recommend, and my team highly recommends, that you use online logins and research whenever you can. So call when you have to. Sometimes you do have to, but online is so much more efficient. And I understand, genuinely, other dinosaurs out there, I understand that it's a little intimidating and all of the dashboards look different, and it's a little hard to navigate some of them and whatever, but like, calm down, Linda, and just get in there and research them, because it is going to make your life a lot easier and your ability to work these claims more realistic if you're using online opportunities. And as a matter of fact, sign up for all relevant third payer portals like Echo Payments, Zealous, Availity. They often give faster, better insights than calling or waiting on outdated insurer portals.
Yeah, because there are some that you have to pay for, like Optum and stuff, and they're great. Don't get me wrong. Those are really great, but we do understand that's an added expense and a lot of people don't want to spend that. But there are some that you don't have to pay for, and like Zealous, Availity, and Echo Payments. And then speaking of Availity, this is a real insider tip from one of our billers. Availity Power Move. When using Availity, verify the eligibility before hunting the claims. So set the eligibility check to the date of service. If coverage was active, Availity will populate patient info automatically in the dropdown. So that will save you time and reduce errors.
Yeah, that came from one of our managers.
Yeah.
So that was a good one.
And then their number 4 was when in doubt, escalate. So get names, get numbers, always document the rep's name and the reference number during calls. These are the breadcrumbs that matter if you do need to escalate. Yep. So don't be scared to escalate.
Absolutely. Honestly, don't be afraid to call a supervisor.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to. You're not being difficult. You're advocating for a timely resolution. You don't have to be a Karen about it, right? Like, but you can just say, I really think that I need to speak to a supervisor because I don't seem to be getting anywhere on this claim. So can you please, escalate this to a supervisor for me? Be cool, right? Like they want, honestly, probably not to talk to you for too terribly much longer either. So let's just all get this resolved as quickly as possible. And,
Well, and like in all actuality, if we're being really honest, sometimes those reps don't know what they're talking about. They're reading off of a screen.
Yeah.
That's why we say to utilize the websites, honestly, because they're utilizing some form. It's probably a different one, but some form of the website that we have access to as well. And they're just reading to you what they see. So sometimes you need to escalate it to a supervisor who may understand what they're seeing a little bit better, or who may have a different screen that they can read off of, honestly.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yep. So we are going to have a downloadable version of these tips available at our website, which is the truthdecaypodcast.com. Genuinely, I thank all of our staff at SD Dental Solutions for providing these tips. Literally, best team in the business.
Yeah.
I also told Ashley specifically that she'd have co-hosting credits this week. So, because she was so into giving us tips. So the Truth Decay pod with Sara, LaRae, and Ashley.
Yeah, Sara, LaRae, and Ashley this week. Okay.
That's
so,
right.
Real quickly, what are our top takeaways?
So I would say number 1, insurance aging reports are fixable.
Yep.
They're absolutely fixable. Like, don't feel like, oh, well, that's it. I guess we just burn it to the ground. Like, you have to face it. You have to approach it with structure, not emotion.
Yeah.
Like, and that's easier said than done. And I can understand that, especially in offices where people care and they want to be doing a good job and they know that this report has kind of got out of hand, but you have to stop avoiding it. You have to just get in there and do it.
Yeah. So most, number 2 would be most insurance aging bloat comes from neglect and not malice. Now, neglect could be malice, but we're saying it's not. Like, most of the time it's not. It's just people they're really busy up there.
Absolutely. Yep. And number 3, consistency and completeness are your best friends when working your insurance aging report. Don't just work the first 2 pages every single week. You've got to work it from top to bottom.
Yeah. And then 2 action steps that our listeners could take now.
Yeah. So number 1, go print your insurance aging report. Literally right now. If you're hearing my voice right now, go print your insurance aging report. Like, go do it and look at it and hold it in your hand and stare at it.
And number 2 would be to audit your oldest 10 claims and write out the next step for each one. So, don't just print that report and just start with those A's. Find your 10 oldest claims that might be about to timely file and, do the steps that it takes to get that, even if that step happens to be a write-off.
Yeah. And don't stop. Keep going. Start with 10, do 10 more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, like, because we do what we do, and we've been in, if anyone's listening right now and they're front desk people, we've been in your situation before. We understand what it's like to run this report, and it's super overwhelming. We want to acknowledge the emotional aspect of the situation. I'm serious. Like, I really want to validate you, but shame and avoidance can sabotage even the best billers. So you have to just stop and look at it and go, okay, here we go. Like, I'm working this today. I'm printing it and I'm doing the top 10 oldest.
Yeah.
And you did it. That's great, right? That's a great start. So, that's a good place to begin.
Yeah. And I want everybody to remember that this is solvable. You're not alone. And we've all been there. We see it all the time. I promise you, this is not something you're alone in.
Yeah.
If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So it can be some easy money, guys. So set aside some time and work that report. And honestly, if you don't have time, that's what we're here for. So give us a call.
That's right. Absolutely. So Thank you guys so much for listening to this. On our next episode, something that we know a lot about, honestly, we have been doing this for a long time. I have talked to probably at this point hundreds, possibly 1,000, I don't know, patients about their money.
Yep.
So collecting from your patients doesn't have to feel like a battlefield. And it doesn't have to hurt your relationships either. Like genuinely, it doesn't.
So next time on the Truth Decay podcast, collections without resentment, how to manage patient balances and AR follow-up without alienating patient relationships.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, if you want to find us, please email us at hello@thetruthdecaydpodcast.com. You can also come visit us on our website, which is sddentalsolutions.com. Come see us if you have any questions. If you want some follow-up on this, we would love to talk to you.
Yep.
So come
and
find us also on our socials.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So you can find us everywhere.
That's right. Absolutely. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.